We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Pod Maverick After Dark. I'm Kirk Anderson, joined for the second straight night by with Josh Bowe of Mavs Moneyball as well. We're coming to you. It's about 9:25. Sorry for the late start time on the stream. The Dallas Mavericks defeated the Brooklyn Nets 119-107. It was Kyrie's first return back to Brooklyn. Really just a delightfully entertaining game. I sort of struggled to figure out what we're going to talk about here, other than the fact that the Mavericks sort of came out, punched the Nets in the mouth, repeatedly punched the Nets in the mouth, and then went cold for just a little bit, only to score enough to kind of close out the game.
Yeah.
How much of this did you get to watch?
I watched pretty much all of it. I think I got a little, I missed like the first. Well, I mean, I just caught up on DVR, but I didn't sit down right at game time. But I was able to fast forward through commercials to get the live play quick enough because of the early start time. It makes it tougher for us dads. But this was, it was a pretty fun game. Very, very normal game for Kyrie. Very just 1 out of 82. Nothing special about this game at all. You could really see it when he had his first alley-oop dunk.
Can we trick him into telling that we're playing the Brooklyn Nets every night?
Yeah. Not only I think that was his first alley-oop dunk ever, I think I saw, but it was a one-handed tomahawk. Totally normal game. Kyrie definitely didn't have any extra emotion for this one. They might as well have been playing the Charlotte Hornets for all he knew, right?
For everybody that doesn't know what Josh is talking about, last night, and Brad Townsend knew what he was doing. So a lot of times what happens after games, beat reporters attempt to get some boilerplate type stuff out of players in an attempt to write a game story. That is, I don't want to necessarily say pushing a narrative, but they have an idea of what they're going to write around. Kyrie going back to Brooklyn is the story. Brad asked Kyrie a question and basically got a minute-long answer about how Kyrie's not there is nothing extra. He's excited to go back to Brooklyn, but there's nothing extra in the game. And I was just tired when I saw it, but he used a phrase that included the words normalize. And I sort of bristle at the concept of therapy speech and when we're talking about sports. Sports is fun. It's fine. It's not supposed to be super serious. And Kyrie got real serious while kind of being mad at Brad. It's a great answer. It's just a minute long of him being mad.
And it's not unique to Kyrie. All these guys.
Oh, but he really has been kind of quiet. He doesn't give the Mavs media has mostly left him alone. So for him to get like confrontational, it just hasn't happened this year.
I know. And then it's just funny because he scores 20 points in the first half. Like it was, it's
ass.
Yeah, it was very obvious that he cared about this game. So
look, as a, he's 31 years old. I don't expect him to bring the juice like this every night, but he was on fire in terms of just attacking, and the offense felt different with that.
Yeah. I mean, you want one of the best shooters ever to shoot a lot, right?
Like, he passes up shots sometimes, and it's like, no, man, you're catching and shooting the three. Please keep shooting.
Yeah, it was probably, he took 10 3-pointer. What we were talking last night after the Philly game, he only took 3 3-pointers, although it was still fine. They scored well. They won.
Yep.
And he's averaging I think 7 per game, 3-point attempts. And we were like, that needs to be 8, 9, maybe even 10. And he had 10 tonight. And he made 6 of them because he's one of the best 3-point shooters ever in terms of percentage and degree of difficulty, spot up shooting, you name it. And yeah, he was awesome. He took a lot of shots and he made a lot of them. And the Mavericks won relatively. This was it wasn't a wire to wire game because Brooklyn made kind of jumped the game up a little bit in the first quarter, but the Mavericks took a lead with 3 or 4 minutes left in the first quarter, and I think they led the rest of the game. And I don't think Brooklyn got it to it. They didn't get it to a one-shot game after that, so it was never really all that close. So
yeah, the Mavericks had a 7-0 run to end the first quarter when it was tied at 24, and then they just never looked back.
Yep.
At one point leading in the 20 points again, which, in some of my group chats that I'm in, Mavs are up by 20. Nope. Up. But this was just sort of one of those games. And I don't understand how Luka Doncic plays 43 minutes.
Yeah, this game was perfect because besides Kyrie being awesome and Luka being pretty awesome and them winning, this was a 2023 Mavs game where it's they won, but it feels like everyone is still kind of mad anyway. Because
which I like watching Luka play. I don't.
Yeah. I know. It's just funny because this was a pretty. There wasn't really anything this went to script. Brooklyn is a bad team. The Mavericks are what are they? They play They play the 96 Bulls against under 500 teams this season. And they beat them. They led by double digits the whole game. So it's there's nothing really here other than, the guys that played well should have, and a bad team looked like a bad team. But then it's wait, Luka played 43 minutes in a game the Mavericks were leading all game by double digits, and some guys came back down to earth, and it's well, where did Derrick Jones Jr. go? And Grant Williams had more turnovers than made shots, and it's just enough little things happened for people to come away from this game mad because somebody has to be mad after a game. So it's just funny. I'm not mad. I just think it felt like people were starting to get frustrated in the fourth quarter.
I'm glad it wasn't a factor in the game, but the refs were big time garbage. Big time garbage. The Mavs only shot 13 free throws as a team. They averaged 23.7 per game, which is tied for 8th in the league. And there
only
were just
2 players shot free throws, Luka and Tim Hardaway.
There were just some flat out bad calls. That bald ref, who I think his name is Mark Davis, miscalled a continuation that was the most clear-cut example of continuation that we get. Even Stan Van Gundy, who, kind of seems to shy, he's just a kind of chronic complainer, but he's just that's an obvious continuation. What are we doing here? The Mavericks could have made this a lot worse. Things got a little junky. Who was
Brooklyn
it?
Tossed in some threes in the fourth quarter.
Yep, Nick Claxton ate Luka's lunch a few times on some very
5 blocks.
Wow. Yeah, he's a pretty impressive player. It's going to be one of these things where you can look into elements of this game and overthink it, but I just can't emphasize enough how much these guys are just trying to make it to All-Star break.
Yeah, especially on second night of a back-to-back.
Yeah. We've had our eyes on this portion of the schedule for a month. And Embiid getting hurt. They play, then who do we play next game?
New York Knicks.
You play.
Are you a little scared that Luka is in New York City for like 3 nights, basically.
Good point. Because they probably go there and they're there tonight. They're there. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, they're not going anywhere.
Maybe he gets whatever time out of his system now. But you're looking at this stretch, and when we're kind of looking at it in advance, where everybody had sort of there's low-key panic that was justified based on how they played in January, that the Mavericks could head into All-Star break under 500. They still have 4 games left. So it's, they played New York, Oklahoma, Washington, San Antonio. But even if they go on a 4-game losing streak, they're still above 500.
Yep.
And this win was nice. This was you don't want to call it but you're essentially padding your win totals. And that's the sort of thing that felt, just pretty good. I struggle to really take anything away from this game that we haven't already, discussed in previous nights. I suppose we should come back when let me take our quick normal break. But I really wanted to. I think we should talk about the Josh Green of it all. I think we should sort of talk, circle back to more trade stuff, because I don't think we're going to have, unless the Mavericks make another trade, or make a trade, which maybe they will. This will be the last time you guys hear from us until that Thursday night game against New York. So, all right. So while you're here, guys, we've got about 200 folks in here. Welcome to the show. If you could hit the like down there at the bottom, Josh and I would appreciate that on the stream. If you're down there as well, if you'd consider subscribing. Earlier in the year, I set kind of an asinine figure of what I had hoped for us to our subscriber base to be by the end of the year. We're not going to get to 5,000, but I just kind of picked the number out of the sky. We are pretty close to 2,500, which is fun. So if you could hit that subscribe button, I'd appreciate it. If you're an audio only listener, do me a favor, leave us a review, 5 stars. Shoot me an email if you really want to talk some Mavs basketball. And while you're here on the live stream, guys, if you could leave a comment on the video when it's done, Josh and I would appreciate it. I've gotten some heads up from a few international fans that sometimes our ads don't always post. All I can do is post the ads into the stream. At that point, it is not something I'm in charge of. I do let my bosses know, and I appreciate.
Yeah, that might be like a legal thing.
Yeah, I just appreciate people not fast forwarding through them, because we get paid by every ad impression, and somehow they're able to tell when you fast forward through ads. So I'm going to insert those ads right now. Then Josh and I will be right back.
We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. The playoffs are heating up, and you can still play along for the rest of the football season on Underdog Fantasy. You may have heard of their Pick'em game, where you pick higher or lower on 2 to 5 of your favorite players' stats. You'll want to check it out. It's fast, it's easy, it's fun, and you could win up to 100 times your money in one night playing it. If you haven't signed up yet, you can get in the game now by heading on over to Underdog Fantasy's app or their website, UnderdogFantasy.com. If you use promo code BLUEWIRE, they'll match your first deposit up to $100, and you'll be ready for the big game. Disclaimer, must be 18 plus, 21 plus in Massachusetts and Arizona, 19 plus in Alabama and Nebraska, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org. In Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP, 1-800-639-8783, or text NEXT-STEP to 53342. New York, call the 24/7 HOPE line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369.
And we are back after 5 seconds, but maybe longer for audio people. So what else do you think we should talk about, Josh?
Do you want to, I guess, you talked about the UTs before we went into the break, so it would only be right that we kind of follow up on UTs like good podcasters that we are. I
Sure.
knew we wanted to talk about the Josh Green of it all, which will probably lead into some trade talk. I thought Green played a pretty good game, like nothing crazy. Defensively, he was a little bit better, but it also helps that Brooklyn just does not have any real credible off the dribble threats. That they've got a lot of their roster is weird where they've got a lot of good players, but like they don't really have a good point guard. They've got Spencer Dinwiddie, who has morphed back into Washington Dinwiddie, Cam Thomas, who is not a point guard. He was a shooter in a point guard's body. And then Dennis Smith Jr. comes off the bench, and he actually plays pretty well for them, but he's just a backup. So,
right.
They got like Bridges and Claxton and Ben Simmons, I guess, is kind of their like de facto point guard. And they got Royce O'Neal and Dorian Finney-Smith and Cam Johnson. And it's like all these play finishers and not really too many play starters.
Yeah.
So there wasn't as many opportunities for Josh Green to get slammed in the side by a screen. Because there's not as much screen navigation when you're playing a team like Brooklyn that doesn't really have an offensive identity, really. So, he didn't score a ton of points. He 2 of 5 from 3, 12 points, which is his lowest scoring game in like the last 3 games. But it's just interesting because he's rumored to, there's some trades out there for the Mavericks because they want to upgrade their forward depth. And it's just, how much do you feel of what Green is doing in the last, I don't know, maybe call it a week or two? Real? How much is that projectable? And then if it is, like, you look at the Mavericks roster and it's like, Green is a guard. He's playing with Luka and Kyrie, and he's playing some 3 and some 4 out of necessity. But I think everyone knows that his best position is as a guard, preferably maybe like an off guard next to a point guard so he can get as much touches as possible because that seems to really elevate his game. So you have Luka and Kyrie as your entrenched starters. They're not going anywhere. Dante Exum is here for at least one more season because they have a team option for him next year. So unless something crazy happens, he's back. You've got Jaden Hardy. Seth Curry doesn't even play, but he exists. And it's like, obviously Green should be playing over a lot of these guys, but when Luka and Kyrie is your starting backcourt when healthy, what is the ceiling for Green? Do you see him as like the starter as a 3? Because if so, you're awfully small. Like Luka, you're making Luka be your second tallest player on the floor if Green is your starter. So does it make sense to sell while his value is pretty high, get in a Kyle Kuzma, PJ Washington, a more traditional, not necessarily traditional, but a more well-suited forward that can play the 4 consistently? And I think that's kind of the debate, I think, raging within probably not only the Mavs fandom, but the Dallas front office as well. Because they don't have a lot of young talent, and you don't want to trade Green and watch him blow up in Charlotte.
But what does blow up mean? Like, there was this really funny discussion on The Mismatch, which is the Kevin O'Connor podcast over there at The Ringer with, what's his name, Chris Vernon. Yep. And they somehow like stumbled back into the Luka Kyrie conversation, or not Luka Kyrie, Luka Brunson conversation again. And they were talking about whether it's, a mischance for, Dallas leaving, letting Brunson walk. Was it a mistake? Yada, yada. And one of the two of them essentially said, it's like, Brunson wouldn't be able, it's really great that Brunson's putting up these great scoring nights for New York. He's put up 40 points the other night. And the other person answered, well, yeah, Luka put up 70. So it's not like you're choosing between the two of them because Luka is the better player, full stop. And so I've been thinking about that whenever we talk about other guys in this lineup, because it's a question. And Rob Mahoney wrote about this today for The Ringer. If you haven't gone and check that out, it's a really lengthy piece. You build around Luka, you build around your stars. And if your peripheral players don't fit, you move along. This is really hard for some people, particularly on the internet, who have like, I'm irrationally attached to Tim Hardaway, but if they can get better by sending Tim Hardaway away, do it. And there's just segments of the fan base that get super attached to specific players. And it's like, Luka is the generational superstar. Everybody else is secondary. That includes Kyrie. This isn't that complicated. So is he a fine backup guard? Sure. I'm glad that more and more people are at least agreeing that he's a guard. That's something that's important to me. So there's this guy on Twitter. His name is Skyfall. It's at Polarfall. He is an NBA draft analysis. I'm pretty sure he is South Korean and English is his second language, but he has been a hell of a basketball evaluator for a while. He had a series of tweets on Josh Green the other night that I want to read out loud. He says, Josh Green is a tough type to evaluate on defense. He's very good at one-on-one chasing or ball pressing. He's very poor at every screen. He dies on simple on and off screens all the time. He stunt and nail digging is good when there's no pick. So it's kind of the center of the floor type stuff. Doesn't know when and where to go with switches. He one of the worst rim protection block player when you consider his superior athleticism. I call it Harrison Barnes syndrome. His career block total is 27, not in a single year, 27 blocks in 207 games. He is not a point of attack defender, but he is a good team defender. So as a result, I think his defense is not a fit with the Mavericks. And that's sort of something that I come back to. Like Jay says, Green is a defensive-minded wing. He's just not. He's not good at defense. Like wings are Kevin Durant or Paul George or Kawhi Leonard. Like Josh Green is a small guard. He is 6'4". Anybody that says differently just doesn't know how heights work. Go look at how he pairs up against a normal sized NBA super normal size, like a superstar wing.
Yeah. I think his archetype, like he should be a defense first player. I mean, that's why he was drafted. Was he
so insanely funny?
I mean, but like we're in year 4 and he has not made the defensive strides that you would hope. He has gotten a little bit better in one-on-one situations to where he was in his rookie year. I think he is a good, when they want to do like a full, like I wrote about this when the Mavericks beat the Knicks, when they sick him on a lead guard full court, like that can be a pretty valuable weapon. Like
Australia used him with that. He was great at that.
He's able to gunk it up. But then in the half court, like the way that he's able to be taken out of the game defensively, like so easily with screens and off ball navigation, that's the stuff that like, obviously young players, that's probably one of the hardest things defensively for young players to learn is how to navigate screens and how to navigate off-ball actions, because these guys are not seeing that in college or wherever they came from, usually before they get to the NBA. Like the level of screening and off-ball action in the NBA is just, it's not even close to college basketball. He saw nothing like this in Arizona, like guys setting legitimate screens and stuff like that. So that's tough to learn. But we're in year 4, and I feel like if anything, he's regressing defensively. Like it feels like I'm not seeing that step up. Offensively, he's maybe developed better than any player I've seen in my life.
Which is why he's still playing a ton. Like his offense is why he's actually staying on the floor, which is just weird.
He went from a guy his rookie year that I didn't know knew how to play, like put the basketball in the hoop, and now he's maybe one of the most efficient role players in the NBA. Like he had a 64.5% true shooting percentage last season, which is outrageous for a guy on the perimeter. Like that's not just a dunk, not like a rim diving dunker. And he's right on the precipice of another 60 plus true shooting percentage season. Like to do that within like 4 years of development is really impressive. But the Mavericks have had a great offense for a while. They've had a terrible defense, an average or below average defense, basically every year of the Luka era, except for the 1 year they went to the Western Conference Finals. So it's like, how do you get that top 10 defense? Obviously, you would like Green to develop into that, but we're in year 4 now, and I'm just not seeing it. So, but it's one of those things where it's not necessarily like, okay, they have to ship him out.
No,
of this. No, if they don't trade Josh Green this week, that doesn't really matter.
Like if they don't make a move, I think I'm kind of okay.
But it comes back to the other side where it's like if they do, like let's say they do feel like they can trade him for PJ Washington.
Sure.
It's not like, what are they doing? Like they just gave away a cornerstone. Like it's also not that level. Like it's the Mavericks have a ton of guards. Luke and Kyrie are going to start. They're going to be guards. Preferably Green's best position is probably the 2. You don't have any credible fours right now besides maybe Maxey, who's finally kind of shown some life. But Grant Williams has been a disaster. You need some forwards. You need some better, bigger wings. So if they feel like we've got this surplus of guards, let's balance the roster and bring in a PJ Washington or a Kyle Kuzma to have a better balanced lineup. I don't think that's
And if you don't like PJ, I kind of get it.
Yeah, I get that too. He's not a player he's not a perfect player either. So again, that's why it's like either way, I don't really see a problem with them going either direction at the trade deadline. Like
the Mavs are just like it's hard to kind of discuss in a rational way because again, I say this most nights. If you're primarily a Mavericks fan watcher, you don't realize how small they are until they get destroyed by a huge team. And then you kind of go through the lineup and you look at everybody and look, guys, I know what the dang NBA.com thing says. I also know how tall I am. And I also know I've stood next to these players. Like Grant Williams is 6'4". Josh Green is also 6'4". Just watch them stand next to each other. Kyrie is 6'1". Luka Doncic should not be your team's second biggest guy on the floor all the time. At least that's what they're building towards.
And that's what they're saying. They're saying that too.
They're saying that.
They want defense, rebounding, and size.
That was one of the things that was in Rob Mahoney's piece today. You know, and his doc wrote about it last year. It's like, it's just a big size thing. So it's not an indictment of the player because I mean, hell.
For him to be where he's at right now compared to his rookie season.
I wanted Josh Green sent to the moon. And so the fact that he's a useful rotation player is a win.
Yeah.
It is such an important win. And if they don't move him, if he's on the team, I really don't think I'm going to be bothered by it. I'm still going to get mad at him, but it's not like I want him shipped out. Like Grant Williams, straight to jail. Enough with Grant Williams. Go away.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's kind of where I'm at. You know, if they feel like they can upgrade their 3 or 4 spot without trading a draft pick, and that involves Josh Green, like at a certain point, if you don't want them to make a trade, like if you're just like, no, this guy, I only want them to trade him for like a real like star, then that's a discussion. Like that's the end of the discussion. Okay, fine. That's how you feel. I'm not going to change your mind. But if you want them to make a trade, but then it's like, oh, well, don't include Josh Green. Like you have to trade something to get something. Yeah. Like you're not going to get PJ Washington.
Oh, we're not
Rashawn Holmes and Seth Curry and second round picks. Like you just have to give up something to get something. So if you don't want them to trade him, I understand that viewpoint entirely. But if you do want them to make a move, but you're also like, but it can't be Josh or it can't be Jaden Hardy. It's like, you know, you gotta think about, you know, you got to give the other team something too.
I mean, this has been 2 games in a row where Tim Hardaway has been removed when things were going sideways, and then the Mavericks pull it out. And I have been a Tim Hardaway super fan.
Do you have conspiracy theories on he thinks there's something going on that we don't know?
No. I just think that like I've seen I've seen a series of games without Tim mattering, and because Kyrie's back, that's the big draw there. Now I'm like, okay, if they move on from Tim, I get it.
You're okay now.
Yeah.
Have you made peace? Well, and it also helps that Green's hitting 40%. Like, you know, if Green's going to keep hitting his threes, that also helps. Like, Lord help them if Green goes into another, you know, stretch where or Maxey also. Because Derek Jones Jr. has kind of turned into a pumpkin very, very quietly. But that's okay. That's not really his fault.
That's a good comment from Che in the chat. Josh doesn't have help along the perimeter until Kyrie, who rotates when Josh's screens come back. Let's be realistic. Josh has to overcompensate when he's on the floor with 4 non-defenders. I mean, 4 non-defenders is a little harsh because, you know, Lively's out there too. Derek Jones, pretty good defender. I think that is a fair point, but that's also the criticism that I'm leveling where it's like the Mavericks really do need like a true superstar wing defender. They need a guy that can really go out and lock someone down, and they just haven't had anyone in a long time. Dorian was a great chaos defender who was great off ball, who they used in point of attack situations, and he became fried chicken every time. Like, granted, you know, it's hard for me to get too mad at him about not being able to guard Dame Lillard, but those are the kind of guys you've got to guard, and you just got to get lucky. And I don't know where they get lucky, but that's where I sort of settle back into the trade discussion where I'm like, I don't want to give away a draft pick for a player who doesn't move the needle. And my friend Brian kind of accused me today. He's like, you don't like any of these players. I'm like, you know what? I'd be fine with PJ Washington. I'd be fine with the guy from the Bucks. I don't know if that does anything to alleviate the big picture problems. Like, do they go from being a set? What are they right now? 8 seed, 7 seed? You'd think I'd know this. We run a Mavs site. It's not like they're moving out of the play-in with one of these trades. I don't think.
You don't think they're moving out of the play-in?
No, I think no matter what they do, they're stuck in that 7 to 10 range. 1 through 4 is locked at this point. You're not getting into the top 4. And I think they would require
New Orleans
luck.
and Phoenix are playing really well. Maybe you catch Sacramento, who's been kind of weird.
But Sacramento owns the Mavericks. It's a styles make fights thing. So it's tough for me. So it's like any sort of coin flip thing. They've won all those tiebreaker stuff.
Right. Yeah, that's true. But yeah, it's I think whatever trade. I mean, the nice thing about the players they're targeting is, one, it seems like they're targeting at least the right player. Like they're not targeting small guards or something. I feel like Kirk, I don't know if this guy. I know we got a Josh Green super fan of the chat, but
no, this is like, it's interesting analysis. He's not like throwing it. Just like I sort of come with most NBA stuff where I'm just like, if you can't navigate a screen, I can't help you.
Yeah, there's 2 parts to guarding a screen. Not trying to deny that his pick and roll defensive partner is also not always doing his job, but there's plenty of tape of Green just like
we're pretty sure
you can't trail the ball handler by like 5 feet after
I am also fairly certain that Josh hurts his elbow because he leads into screens like he thinks he's Derrick Henry.
Yeah. So, but what I was going to say is at least, they seem to be targeting the right position because they need forwards, they need wings, they need players that can play the 4.
Yeah.
Which both Kuzma and Washington can. And also they're targeting guys that are close enough to the Luka timeline because Washington's 25, Kuzma's a little older, 28, but when Kyrie's 31, it's not too bad. And those guys are on multi-year deals, so you're not worried about losing them anytime soon. And they're on relatively good contracts. Like Washington is pretty cheap for what he is. People might think he's overpaid a little bit considering his production this year in Charlotte, which it's fine, but his contract's not that bad. It's not that much bigger than Grant Williams. Let's just say that.
Yep.
And then Kuzma's contract is pretty good. Like it declines every year. So like, I don't know if they're going to get these guys and you don't give brownie points for, well, we didn't make a trade, but we wanted these guys. Like, that's kind of fake, but at the very least, they seem to have the right idea of the player they want. I also thought that when they got Grant Williams. So we'll see what they do. But yeah, I think me and you are both in agreement that we're pretty much okay with almost any trade they make as long as it doesn't involve the first that they can give this year.
Which the chatter, which is so stupid. Like we'll think about this stuff in a week, and so much of this is just like it's just such a waste of oxygen because it's either much ado about nothing or they'll make a single move. At least with the Kyrie thing, that seemed to be sort of telegraphed to us. I mean, you head on over to MavsMoneyball.com today, and I'm just going to share our screen real quick. We did, am I going to share the screen? Yeah, I'm going to share my entire screen. If you head on over to Mavs Moneyball, we got a whole bunch of stuff going on over there today. We had CBA Mavs, everybody's friend Scott. He wrote a nice explainer. What draft picks can the Mavericks trade? I also bumped up his post trying to explain what it would take for the Mavericks to trade Josh Green because he's essentially a poison pill contract. Though I feel like that's a little bit of a misnomer because his contract is a certain way on purpose. Then we got a poll up that I would like you guys to go take if you want. That's basically around. It's got 3 questions around the trade deadline, and I would like to get this chat and anybody listening to the podcast's opinion on it. It takes like 30 seconds to go click through the questions. Our guy Ben wrote a piece making the argument that the Mavericks shouldn't make any trade at the deadline. And then one of the many Matts that writes at Mavs Moneyball wrote a piece that the Mavericks should hold on to Josh Green, makes a strong argument for that. What else did we have? Then we had, Xavier, our guy Xavier, normally known for sort of throwing bombs at the face of Mavs fans, wrote a very interesting case for Andrew Wiggins. It makes me angry because I hate Andrew Wiggins, like kind of religiously, but convincing article, which is, Xavier tends to throw bombs. So the fact that he was able to sway, at least make me go, is something. So, what else, man? Is there anything else we want to touch on, or should we just sort of, kind of wrap this one up and I'll head on to our second live show?
Yeah, we could probably wrap this thing up. I don't know. There wasn't anything tactically I thought was particularly interesting. I think the minutes thing with Luka was pretty outrageous.
Yeah.
I actually I don't want to end on the podcast on a downer note, but that was bad. They were up. I think they were up 20 to enter the fourth quarter. I don't understand how you don't get Luka. He played the entire second half. I don't understand how you don't give him a 3 to 4 minute break. He is now 42 minutes or more in 5 of the last 6 games.
Yeah.
And Kyrie's back. How do you not let him sit the first 3 to 4 minutes like Kyrie Cook, who's playing spectacularly? And by the way, they lost the lead anyway with Luke on the floor. Nothing would have materially changed about this outcome of this game if you sat Luka 4 minutes in the fourth quarter. It's bad. That's bad.
The secret Luka criticism is the plus minus. Yeah, and the lead was only cut to 6, but the Luka on off numbers, that's the criticism of his if you don't like him as a player, that's where you start with the Luka criticism, is the on off numbers. And the Mavericks are weird shit happens sometimes with him on and off the floor. I don't know how to describe it. I don't know if it's him. I don't know if it's Kid. I don't know if it's the rotations. It deserves a longer look, and I'm not smart enough for it. I'm just going to say, the easy out is to blame Kid. As much as I like to do that, I'm not sure if I can in this circumstance, because I also think there's something to Luka basically saying, I'm going to play. He told Kid the other night, I can play all 45, 48 minutes. He likes to play. Kid needs to protect him from himself.
Yeah, I mean, if that's where we're at, then there's.
Well, of course, that's where we're at. The guy went on local radio and was like, who's a lot like Jesus Christ and Gandhi? Luka Doncic.
I know, but that means
he's embarrassing.
This is less in-game decision-making stuff and foundational organizational problems. So I guess we can't talk about that tonight.
I mean, we can, but we've just been talking about it for years, and it's it's. I wrote it in my piece the other night. There's a little. I don't want to call it organizational rot. That feels a bit mean for a team that.
That's what I was thinking in my head.
But it's akin to that in that there's just a culture of excuse making horseshit that goes on with the Mavericks, and not a culture of excellence, and it drives me nuts. That's all. They'll still continue to win games because Luka is that good and Kyrie is that good, but failing up is a thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Oh, do you want a fun Grant Williams stat?
I absolutely want a fun Grant Williams stat.
So he's at 7, 8, 9, 10. He has 10 turnovers in the last 5 games. And in those 5 games, he has 8 made field goals. So, which is great. I don't know how he has so many turnovers because he's purely
that pass he made tonight in the fourth quarter. The
turnovers are killer, man.
This is largely because I have a 7-year-old who I'm trying to teach basketball stuff to. But I had a assistant basketball coach who used to scream at me all the time in high school. He's a groundskeeper for the Texas Rangers now. His name's Pat Hernandez. Shout out, Pat. Shout out, Coach Hernandez. And he used to yell at me in his thick country accent, know when to go and know when to whoa. And I think about that time every time Grant Williams does something, because he's inhabited he has inherited the Josh Green oh shit thing when he dribbles and when he goes places, because he always looks like he's about to fall down. Josh Green used to do that before he figured out his speed was a weapon. And Grant is just a stumbling, bumbling, rumbling idiot, and I can't handle him anymore.
Yeah, that's tough. Anyway, Mavs win, so good game. Yeah, I guess that's about it.
All right,
next game will be fun.
It will be fun. 6:32. We love that. Then they play at 2:00 on Saturday. Don't know what.
Whoa,
don't know.
okay.
This is amazing. This early stuff is. Look how chipper and happy I am. All All right, so guys, you want to hang around here? I'm going to turn on our second post-game show where you can come hang out, argue basketball with me if you want. Hopefully Brian will join us again to start the show. But obviously, we got tons of people that seem to want to talk. My guy, this guy Jordan, who used to join the old other post-game shows that I ran on Green Room or whatever the hell it's called. He sent me a message, said he wants to join tonight. So we will we will have fun. Please hang out, and let's see here. Nothing else other than check Mavs Moneyball as much as possible. But Josh, thanks so much for hanging out with us. Any last comments?
No, you guys have fun tonight.
All right, we'll be right back here. I'm going to press this button thing, and then for those listening on the audio feed, if it's a long enough show, I will do it in a separate podcast, which will go up on Wednesday daytime. Everybody else, hold tight.